Greetings. I'm Eb the Antiquarian. Valentine's Day, a time of love and romance. So today I'd like to introduce you to the love god Eros. Also known as Cupid by the Romans or the Latin-speaking peoples. Eros lights the flame of love in the hearts of gods and men. So not even the gods are immune to his powers, his seductive powers. Now, Eros is the child of Aphrodite. She, of course, is the goddess of beauty and romance. Maybe a long-term romance is a better way of describing Aphrodite. Eros, on the other hand, is more often creates a situation of infatuation or just momentary lust. He appeals more to the libido than he does to the heart. Here's a tale that illustrates this point, showing Eros, his mother, Aphrodite, and her lover, Ares, the god of war. In the Latin version, we're talking Cupid, Venus, and Mars, but the story's pretty much the same. It seems that one day Eros was fooling around with his arrows and accidentally pierced his mother's breast. Now, at the time, she was married to Hephaestus, the smith of the gods, a very plain, almost homely individual. Uh, she was not happy with this marriage. And once she had been pierced by one of Eros' love arrows, she immediately turned around, and who did she spot but Ares? Big, strong, handsome, powerful. And she immediately became infatuated with him and consummated that infatuation on numerous occasions, according to stories. Here is the lament of the early Greek poet Archilochus. He was a warrior and a poet. I lie here miserable and broken with desire, pierced through to the bones by the bitterness of this God-given painful Eros. It seems that Archilochus was smitten with a young girl named Neobule, and he wanted to marry her, make, make her an honest woman. But her father refused the marriage. And Archilochus turned his poetic verses against Neobule and her father to the point where they became so shamed that they both committed suicide. And Archilochus finds himself shamed and guilt-ridden. Once again, limb loosening Eros makes me tremble. Those words from the mouth of Sappho on the island of Lesbos, and they were directed towards her wards, one or more of her wards at her, well, what shall we call it, a finishing school for young ladies on the island of Lesbos. And then there was Seneca, statesman, poet, philosopher, playwright, also advisor to the Emperor Nero. He has one of his characters in a play say, Cupid smites maid's breast with unknown heat. And I'm sure Seneca could testify to that personally. Now, there's an interesting story told about Eros and Hades. It seems that one day Aphrodite spotted Hades wandering around looking rather lovelorn. Now, Hades was the god of the underworld where the dead resided. But in this particular instance, he was wandering around on the surface, the surface of the island of Sicily. And so Aphrodite had Eros go loose an arrow that pierced the chest of Hades and infected him with the seductive desire to have a woman. Unhappily, the first woman he spotted was young Persephone, the daughter of Demeter. She's wandering around spreading um, the bounty of her and her mother in the fields. And along comes Hades in a chariot, reaches down, scoops her up, abducts her, and takes her to the underworld. Now, the story has a happier ending, but we don't have time for that today. Even Eros fell victim to romance. It seems his mother, Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty, was jealous of the princess Psyche. She was a beautiful young lady, and people were noticing her rather than looking at Aphrodite. And so, in her jealousy, she had Eros infect Psyche with one of his love arrows and then disguise himself as the ugliest possible human that you could imagine, so that Psyche inadvertently fell in lust for this ugly figure, who it turns out is really Eros in disguise. And it gets more involved in that, but it turns out that Eros can reveal himself finally to Psyche, whose wings are the wings of a butterfly rather than a dove. And the two of them fly off into happy ever after bliss. And we have to take a look at Greco-Roman sexuality and gender with Aphrodite and Eros running around. Now, we are talking about two patriarchal societies, the Greeks and the Romans. Men in both societies freely enjoyed casual sex with prostitutes, slaves, and free women and men of their choosing. And the sex they had, if it was extramarital sex, caused them no personal guilt nor public shame. It was simply a given. It was part of the society of both ancient Greece and Rome. And presumably, the private art in ancient Greece, the wall art, was as sexually suggestive as that of the wall art in Pompeii and Herculaneum. which likely much of it was produced by Greek artists in any event. Now, the Greeks most admired the beauty of a youthful nude male. That was their idea of the most beautiful thing in nature. And so their statues and the painting on some of the athletic scenes on the vases they produced always showed the young male warriors or athletes in the nude. On the other hand, the goddesses, the heroic women were portrayed always in drapery of sorts. And it wasn't until late in the fourth century that the Greeks started to uh, display in their art the nude female. And it really belongs to a later age, the Hellenistic age, which was a more cosmopolitan age, and finally the Romans. Because the Romans, more than anything else, enjoyed looking at nude female statues. They would never, ever allow themselves to be portrayed in the nude. They were always dressed in their formal togas and maintaining their virtue and gravitas. So there is a difference between the sexual values of the Romans and those of the Greeks. So I'll give Ovid, the poet, the last word. Offered a sexless heaven, I'd say no thank you. Women are such sweet hell. So thanks for watching. Have a happy Valentine's Day. Do come back to the Aged Antiquarian every few weeks or so and see what new videos have been posted for your lifelong learning experience. Thanks again.